and welcome to PTV World special transmission on what is going on between India and Pakistan and as the situation develops in the aftermath, of course, of the Pahalgam attack. This is very, very essential in terms of what is going to be the way forward amid, of course, reports of possibilities of escalation. And this is, of course, something that Pakistan has reiterated many times, and most recently, of course, it also has been reiterated by the Chief of Army Staff that Pakistan, of course, is ready to meet any misadventure, and there should be no hesitation or confusion at the end of India in terms of what Pakistan, of course, is capable of in terms of responding and protecting its sovereign land. And this is very, very important given the fact that Pakistan, of course, has exercised extreme responsibility and restraint, but of course added to it reciprocal measures to India's unwarranted measures in the aftermath of the Pahalgam attack with false allegations and, of course, baseless accusations against Pakistan, for which the evidence has still not been provided, even though Pakistan, of course, has been calling for an independent and neutral investigation into the matter. We've also seen that the Chief of Army Staff has been moving around and raising the morale of the troops, and he's been very, very active, contrary to what, of course, the kind of rhetoric we've been hearing in from India. This is also important in terms of the way that decisive and cohesive stance is being taken by Pakistan in terms of the diplomatic ways in which it's engaging with the regional and international community, and of course with the united front that it has presented at home as well, while at the same time, of course, putting forward the hard facts and truths and bringing out to the open the kind of false allegations that India is pointing towards. So we're going to be taking a closer look at what is happening today and what kind of developments have taken place and where is the situation is heading. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we've also been joined online by foreign affairs expert Dr. Ahmed. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Kesser, and being a part of the discussion in this very special transmission. And of course, we'll be speaking to you more about in detail as to what really is the current situation. But let me start with you, Faisal, with reference to what we've seen, given the developments, particularly in terms of the Chief of Army Staff leading from the front and talking about how prepared Pakistan is and that there should be no confusion at the hands of India. And we've, of course, proven that in the past as well, in 2019 as well. And this is something that, of course, is very, very essential to Pakistan to resolve. But I want your take in terms of what you have seen in the ways that his vision and leadership has taken us forward.
Yes, and obviously whenever we talk about Pakistan's military and obviously the leadership of the military, of course, one thing is for sure that the only message always came from the military side was that Pakistan is a peaceful country, believes in the peaceful resolves of all of the conflicts we have with India or we have with the or our Western Front as well. But of course, when somebody is imposing war on Pakistan, of course, Pakistan won't stay silent. Pakistan's military won't stay silent. They are always ready, as we have seen that they have been fighting against terrorism since more than 20 years. And that is a proof that Pakistan's military forces and Pakistan's armed forces, they are war hardened. And this is the basic confidence that actually Chief of the Army Staff is having with him, and that is why he has time and again highlighted this, that we are not going to stay silent if somebody is going to, of course, escalate it. And if there is an escalation, of course, Pakistan would reciprocate in any way possible. But Pakistan believes that this incident needs a probe, and that probe should be non-biased. And once this probe is conducted, of course, then Pakistan would be in a position to tell India whatever the resolve is. But if without a probe, if on the basis of smear campaign, on the basis of media war, which they have been of course igniting against Pakistan, against Kashmiris, against Muslims, then if they want to do anything on the basis of smear allegations, then of course there will be a reply
right,
from
absolutely.
Pakistan.
Hold that thought. We'll take a short break and be right back. Welcome back to the transmission. Faisal, you were continuing. Please carry on.
Yeah, I was just of the view that, of course, this particular incident it has many flaws, the way it was being propagated on the Indian media, and then of course by the looks of it, the BJP was cashing on it for their own political gains, for their own electoral gains, as we have been seeing that they have been utilizing the sensitivities of this particular incident of Palgam, and the only reason behind it is that they just wanted to use it to garner the vote and support on the ground, because everyone knows that UP is the center of gravity for BJP, center of gravity for the politics of India, today's India, because it is sometimes it is considered as the population of UP is more than Pakistan as a country. So if UP is that kind of important state, and if there is an election, then of course you can always you can figure out that they have a plan, and this is the plan they are coming up with. And when they of course talk about attacking Pakistan, then of course our military leadership, especially Chief of the Army Staff, won't be quiet. And he has been very busy in these 2-3 days, busy in a way that of course he has been meeting the Jawans, he has been meeting the officers, and he has been part of the exercises which were being conducted by Pakistan's military. Though Pakistan's military is kind of military that doesn't need to conduct any exercises, reason being, since more than 20 years Pakistan has already been actively fighting against terrorism, and that fight wasn't just being fought by Pakistan's military, but of course when we talk about the Air Force was involved in it, and practically speaking Pakistan's naval forces, they were involved in it as well. So overall our battle preparation, it is right on the top right now, and it is I think it is a point that should concern the Indians, that their war hysteria and their war mongering, if eventually takes them to of course come towards Pakistan like they did back in 2019, February 2019, after the Pulwama attack, and that too was a false flag attack, and still there are evidences that are dubious, and there are evidences which they have been providing the world with. Of course there are huge question marks over it, and to me I think this time around they should have been cautious enough. Still they are a little cautious, but they have to be more cautious about engaging with Pakistan in that context, because if they do make a mistake, and if there is an attack that they bring on towards Pakistan, of course Pakistan would not stay silent. Pakistan will reciprocate the way it should be.
Right, absolutely. Let us welcome in the transmission also Dr. Ishtiaq, Ahmed, foreign affairs expert, who's joined us online. Thank you very much, Dr. Ishtiaq, for joining a part of the discussion. And I want your perspective with the ways that you see the current situation developing, and how you see the trajectory from right after the 22nd of April to where we stand today. Pakistan, of course, has put forward its stance very, very clearly on multiple fronts, and has fought a comprehensive battle with regards to where is needed, of course, in terms of diplomacy, in terms of building a narrative, and of course with the military preparedness. But I want your take in terms of how you see the direction in which the current situation is taking, particularly right after the Belgaum incident to today.
Well, thank you very much, Sana, for taking me. It's quite unfortunate, that every once in a while, India, increases the tempers in this region unnecessarily. Now, obviously, it was a very unfortunate incident that took place in Indian occupied Kashmir, and it has a larger political context. I think something to do with what happened in 2019, and I think it was but natural that there would be resistance to the Indian illegal attempt to annex and divide the disputed territory. And 5-6 years down the lane, the resistance has taken a violent turn. But again, the dynamics of the situation are always complex when you talk about the security issues in this region. And obviously, from Pakistani perspective, and other independent watchers also are of the opinion that if there is a political dynamics to this situation, then obviously either for domestic political reasons or in the context of India's rivalry with Pakistan, these violent incidents perhaps portray to a scenario where there might be a possibility of false flag operation. So I think, and the reason I'm saying this is that whenever a violent incident takes place, there are proper investigations before you pass any judgment. And I think within minutes, India accused Pakistan just as it did before many times. So as far as the pragmatic political calculations are concerned, I think as Raja Saab pointed out, for BJP, it is important to gain political mileage domestically. Secondly, the reason they instantly followed up with suspending the Indus Water Treaty. So this leads to also one to suspect that the broader pragmatic motivation in terms of foreign policy was to suspend this treaty, and that pertains to like denying Pakistan its due right to benefit from the water flows in different rivers on which our agriculture depends. So therefore, I think both for internal foreign policy and in domestic political considerations, I think we need to contextualize this incident.
Right, and Dr. Ishtiaq, of course, Pakistan has been asking and has been speaking about an independent and neutral probe into this, and this is, of course, something that will bring out the facts. There is, of course, a lot of diplomatic channels that Pakistan is engaging with, including the US, of course. But I want you to take in terms of the roles that these countries, like the US or China, can actually play in the current situation, given the fact that we have, of course, called for this investigation, but it's not something that has been able to happen in the past as well with the kind of actions that India has taken. So what sort of influence or leverage can these countries put forward towards India at this point in time?
Well, the response of the international community as a whole and of key powers, including the United States and China, has traditionally been to let India and Pakistan resolve their bilateral issues. And I think they would go to the extent of calling for mutual restraint in critical situations like this. You see, the Indian side, especially the BJP, has been embarrassing India time and again. Like one of the calculations they have is that perhaps there is a new administration in the United States. Trump, has this close rapport with Modi. But statecraft is a very complex issue, and obviously great powers carefully choose their options. So we have seen in the last many days since this unfortunate incident that India's expectation from Trump that he would go to the extent of siding clearly with India, India is disappointed. And broadly speaking, in my opinion, that Indian government has embarrassed Indian people before, and they have embarrassed Indian people again in this particular incident. Even if they undertake, just to like speculate, even if they undertake any kind of strike again, just as they did in 2019, they know very well what kind of response will be from Pakistan. I think Pakistan is fully prepared. Pakistan is a very, very strong country in South Asia. Even for that matter, Bangladesh has asserted first time since 1971, getting closer to Pakistan and towing a very independent stance, on this latest crisis. So India's, for India, situation within South Asia has taken a very unfavorable turn. Raising the stakes with Pakistan will not help India. I think it is in India's interest to focus on its economic, development. That is wonderful. And let other countries in the region, including Pakistan, to focus on economic development, on social development, This is what needs to happen. And if you continue to raise political stakes just for the sake of satisfying your domestic political constituency, or jeopardizing peace with Pakistan by suspending the Indus Water Treaty, I think India is not going to realize these objectives as long as Pakistan is there in the region.
Right, absolutely. Farrukh, let me get your perspective in as well. With reference to, of course, the situation at the moment, there is a lot of concern, of course, on both sides in terms of the possibility of an escalation. But we've discussed how perhaps we have seen a change or a move away from that. And I want your take in terms of how does that then play out within India and within India's own political domains, given what sort of rhetoric and statements we've seen coming in the past and the kind of irresponsibility that has been shown by the Indian side. How will that be something that will move forward or evolve into?
Right, Sana. You're particularly talking about the Indian media's reckless propaganda, the way it continues. Because otherwise, if you see in reality, I don't recall any statement by Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, accusing Pakistan, right?
But what about the measures that the government has taken?
Yeah, that was, again, that was self-indictment in a sense. Because whosoever actually could decided about that, jumping the gun without producing evidence, even without apprehending the actual perpetrators. If you cannot apprehend them, at least kill them, right? At that time, there was this window they could have done. But because of that whosoever actually made this call, because no one knows everything, right? A Prime Minister also gets advice from people and then he has to actually agree on certain things. So whosoever actually did India really great harm. But then this media continues to escalate and literally the bigotry is on display there. Even now, there are people, and by the way, India might actually tell you that in India the actual war is between the religious extremists and the moderates or secular. That is not true. We see the ugly face of bigotry coming from everybody, right? The moderates, the most moderate voices would also say, okay, let me slap you once. Let me just get in and, carry out a strike and then we go back. The problem is that there have been incidents and there seems to be an incrementalism in how India actually has been doing this, right? In 2016, after Odi, they claimed that they have actually carried out a surgical strike, and that was essentially somebody actually hitting a certain post on the other side and then claiming victory. Then in 2019, they again, because of Pulwama, they created this huge show, and then they tried to come into Pakistan, were accosted, just dropped the bomb wherever they could, and then claimed that they have destroyed something. Every time this happens, the need for requirement for evidence shrinks, and India wants to actually hit in Pakistan deeper and deeper. And by the way, these are two nuclear countries, right? So there has to be a nuclear threshold as well. So they keep on, through these activities, try to keep on, raising the threshold so that they can get away with anything. Then they have this apprehension that it cannot escalate into any kind of major war. This propaganda has permanently damaged their mind, right? And we know that behind all this, there is a history. There are people, even the founders of India actually said, Abul Kalam Azad said that give Pakistan a few years and they will be back. Since then, everybody has been trying to just conquer Pakistan, and because of this hatred, the point is now they don't want you to be their, part, like regular. They would like you to be their colony. So this kind of mentality shows repeatedly. But I think that India's Prime Minister has actually moved on, and he has actually shown himself to be a very smart operator, right? Why do I say this? When it came to taking action, he called all these services chiefs and put ball in their court. You do whatever you like, right? And by the way, before they can do any kind of kinetic action or try to do that in Pakistan, they first have to apprehend the people who were the perpetrators. Otherwise, you cannot find a way to link it with Pakistan.
Absolutely.
So, so far they haven't been able to do it. So that statement that they have been given the right to strike whatever way they want, that does not explain whether it is regarding Pakistan or within India or within Kashmir, right, for that matter. On the other side, he has then played a card which can, and I spoke about yesterday, the day before yesterday, which can renegotiate the very moorings of Indian nation. India's nation has been doing something, and BJP itself, its evolution is quite interesting. The fact is that BJP actually came into existence as a reaction to something which was wildly unjust. A country like India imposing emergency, that was Indira Gandhi doing so, right? Once that happened, they realized that there wasn't any opposition, right? Before that, there never used to be some. So finally, these organizations came together and they were doing whatever they could to mount a resistance. But then what happens? Then because India's society is stratified and it has castes, and there has been traditionally an elite capture of Brahman, Kshatriya control of the entire society. Because of that, what happened was that when there was a caste census, or a talk of a caste census, Mandal Commission it is called, at that time they realized, late in 70s and then early 80s, they realized that it is going to actually take power away from them, right? And then they went for Babri, and after that, one radicalization has led to another. But the essential problem was what? Caste. And deflection was communalism. Deflection was Pakistan. Deflection was victimhood, right? Now what has happened is, because RSS has opened its doors to other caste, lower caste as well, and 90% of India's population is either OBC or then tribal or Dalit. Those 90% people, out of which Narendra Modi himself is one as well. So they want a share of the pie. RSS has opened its doors, and then this party, BJP, has also included many of those. So it is no more a question of whether you have to maintain status quo. So now, because Rahul Gandhi actually used this issue of caste census thoroughly to give tough time to Narendra Modi, he has played this master stroke of announcing right in the middle of this escalation the caste census, right? What does it do? It changes dynamic of the party. In the country, he becomes wildly popular, especially in the 90% of those people who were given shrinking part of resources and representation. In his own party also, all the Brahmins, all the heavy hitters, they will be marginalized, and he will be wildly popular. So he couldn't care less what happens with the Pahalgam or Pakistan, so to speak. And then, of course, international parties have also played a very important role, and we should be grateful. And because of that, they have actually tried to move attention away from whatever is happening in Pakistan. Unfortunately, their media's attention or obsession and hatred towards Pakistan is sticky. But remember, Indian media also does not have representation of those backward classes, castes. It does not have representation of any tribals. It does not have of any Dalits. So what happens now? All these people, those who were actually first used to play the good old values, that was Nehruvian values, and now they have actually created this communalism and anti-Pakistanism as the new normal. Now they are going to long for this also, because they are going to be history. Right? So I think that Narendra Modi, by doing this, has earned a lot of respect in my eyes. And I think that eventually this message will sink sink in, and Indian media and all these hawks will start worrying about their share of the pie, because at this moment the surgical strike is there, but it is on them, not on us.
Right. Dr. Ishtiaq, I also want your perspective on this, given you see the dynamic that is evolving both within the political dynamics of India, and then, of course, the way that it's playing out regionally and internationally. And add to that, how do you think can this be possibly something that the BJP government can move away from, and what sort of face-saving avenue will they be able to explore?
It's a very good question. You see, BJP basically is not a political party. It is a religious movement, and obviously it has outgrown from RSS. And RSS was a party which had no say in India until the 1990s. And they used this Babri Mosque issue to gain political mileage, and they have eventually succeeded in grabbing power and controlling it. Congress has really lost its momentum for a long time now. So, given the religious motivations of this party, what we can expect is that they would keep the conflict within Pakistan intact, because that actually provides them the basis to garner greater political support within India. And that's quite an unfortunate reality. You know, Sana, just let us think, from a different perspective. In Pakistan, we have seen, especially since 1979, the growth of religious extremism. There were geopolitical circumstances also, but also domestic political, factors that drove this extremism and terrorism. And in the past several years, we have been struggling actually to get rid of this issue. And there is a commitment, there is a resolution. It's a very complex task, but our leadership, our armed forces, our society in general, and across the political spectrum, there is considerable, consensus that we need to fight with this extremism, motivated by whatever religion, and its militant or terrorist manifestations in the society. This is the consensus here. You see, compare Pakistan then with India. India is facing a religiously motivated polity, and it's very violent expression. Sometimes it expresses itself in these, so-called terrorist acts. They try to pass the buck on to the others, but they are driven by domestic political circumstances. So India basically has entered into a phase that Pakistan had entered 40 years ago. And we should wish luck, to the Indians, what happens to them in the future. This is a political phase right now. It has its violent, modes. But 10, 20 years down the lane, expect bloodbath. Expect, when the situation moves down from the elite to the grassroots population, you will have different motivations, different forces, playing havoc with the Indian polity. And India is a much larger country. It has a much larger population. It has, I think many, many more fault lines than Pakistan, ethnically, caste, and I don't know how many other factors driven. So I think, and that would be very unfortunate actually. Countries rise, and we appreciate India's economic rise in the last 30 years. That's a very big achievement. And we wish that, all ethnic groups and religious groups in India should, survive peacefully. They should coexist, and this region as a whole should be, removed from any kind of bilateral or regional conflict, and South Asians as a whole should make progress. But if India has chosen a path that is a deadly path, obviously for the region, and it upsets us in Pakistan time and again. But this is a deadly pathway that would ultimately upset the Indian masses, not us. And obviously, if India, gets in trouble, implications would be for the regional states. But I think this is a choice which the Indian leadership has made. Bravo to them. if they want to live with this kind of a situation, mixing lethal religion, a lethal religious philosophy with the overall political structure of the country, its consequences will be far more, deadlier for Indians themselves than for any other country in the region, in my opinion.
Right. And Dr. Ishtiaq, please add to that, given, of course, where we've currently seen the situation moving on from, we've also seen that there is the issue of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir that, of course, still stays. And we have seen that even in the aftermath of this Pahalgam attack, there has been a lot more action that has been taken against the innocent people of the occupied valley. And we've seen draconian laws existed for decades. We've seen then the actions of 2019 take place. And so a lot of what is going on also is something that the people of the occupied valley are facing the brunt of. So I want your take in terms of, while we talk about this de-escalation and the role that the regional and international players can play in this, how much of that would also impact the people of the occupied valley?
I think Farrukh and Raja Saab would, second my opinion, but I think the real issue is that of the Kashmiri self-determination here. You can't really, this is a territory that belongs to Pakistan. And obviously, there were UN Security Council resolutions, and Kashmiris have to make this choice whether they want to be a part of India or part of Pakistan. And I think we know very well that if it comes to a real credible choice, a very fair process monitored by the United Nations, then obviously the Kashmiris would love to become a part of Pakistan, because Pakistan case stands for Kashmir. And you can't really, in 2019, you grab this territory, which is a disputed territory as long as the UN Security Council mandate, whether it is practical or not, that is up to the international organization. But these are resolutions, they have credence, there is international law, and I think that is ultimately the real issue. You can't really grab a territory, subjugate its people, and then what India has done, as compared to pre-2019 situation, is try to, reshape the demography and identity of the Indian occupied Kashmir and the Kashmiri population over there. So you can't do that. You can't issue tens of thousands, nearly 80 or 90,000 domiciles for Indians who have nothing to do with the Kashmiri situation or the Kashmiri demography. So once you do that, automatically there will be resistance. And if there is a resistance which is driven by internal situations and conditions which are deteriorating very fast, you can't pin the blame on Pakistan. Pakistan is trying to focus on stability, on economy, on its own future. And Pakistan obviously desires that this pending issue, namely the Kashmir dispute, should be amicably resolved on the basis of the UN Security Council resolutions. So we have an international legal opinion, which nobody can deny. And Kashmiris have a choice that only they can make. Nobody can impose that choice upon them. So therefore, until this larger political dimension is looked upon, we will continue to have this self-made crisis, and a crisis whose roots India is trying to impose upon Pakistan, whose roots internally lie either in India's domestic political structure with this domineering motivations of the BJP, or they lie in the real self-aspirations of the Kashmiri population, which has been suppressed, unlike the past, in ways under the BJP rule that we have not seen before.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ishtiaq, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Faisal, with of course what Dr. Ishtiaq was speaking about, particularly in terms of the plight of the people of the occupied valley, and that being at the heart of the issue. However, the UNSC violations, of course, have taken place back in 2019. Violations in terms of the draconian laws and the ways that the occupation forces have committed atrocities against the people have been going on for decades. So in terms of where we stand today and how it's linked to that core issue at heart. What role can the UN or other international players play in this regard?
Well, they can only emphasize on today's India, and of course, knowing the facts on ground, India is of course needed by the Americans against China, and in that context, India enjoys that leverage in which India is enjoying all of the unilateral steps it takes in Kashmir, though United Nations condemns it, not only condemns it, but of course, since the very first day, they have said that the only resolve is that of course the plebiscite is the only resolve, and when it comes to making any decisions in the region, then they can't be the unilateral decisions. Abrogation of 370-35A, that was the of course the first one, and then later on we started seeing that one after another demographical changes, and then when it comes to moving people from one side to another side, and forcing in certain cases in which their livelihoods, they've been snatched. The farmers, the Kashmiri farmers, their livelihood, they have been snatched. Of course, they used to rely on the fruit trees, and they simply cut the fruit trees and they started building their own infrastructures and all. That infrastructure that is actually catering the 900,000 Indian military in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and very lately they have started allotting their lands to different research centers, and in the name of research centers they are just grabbing. They are a bunch of land grabbers who are actually grabbing the land in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir on the very very chummy kind of headlines in which they say, oh, there would be research done, or there would be a university in there, and we are actually bringing education system for the Kashmiri students and all. It has nothing to do with that. In the guise of this whole mantra, they are just grabbing the land, and they will be grabbing more and more land for that for the staff. We are making the houses as well, as Dr. Ishtiaq has rightly pointed out, that thousands of people from elsewhere in India, they are bringing them into Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir just to disturb the demographics, so that in future, if of course the situation and the equation is as such in which they are forced to go for the plebiscite, they can say that here we have majority now is with us, so we can't obviously hand over this Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and we are just going to take this, and the other side we know that it's the Muslim side, so they can decide about themselves, but this side we are not going to give it, because the demographic shows there is a imbalance. Of course, the Hindus are more and the Muslims are smaller in number. But overall, Sana, one point which I wanted to make, did you notice a trajectory that whenever Pakistan is hitting really hard on the Western front, I mean, now we have been talking since few months, we have been talking consecutively about Fitna al-Kharij, how Pakistan's military forces, they have been hitting them, they have been busting them, they have been even, Pakistan's Air Force was actually involved in the bombings as well in March and in December, and last year in March and April. Every time when there is an operation going on full-fledged, because they are a proxy of the Indians, because they are a funding of the Indians, because they are getting the facilitations and finances from the Indian side, and Pakistan is busting that funding, now they simply engage Pakistan on the Eastern Front, so that the whole context, actually the spectrum changes.
Right, I understand. Farrukh, you want to add something?
Yeah, I actually wanted to, earlier when Dr. Saab was mentioned my name, I'm going to disagree with him with huge respect. He's like my elder brother, but I respect him a lot. Disagreement is that he was saying that BJP is essentially not a political party but a religious movement. Totally contrary to that. I think that it is essentially world's largest political party, and it is found a killer formula to actually rule a country like India by rehashing all the formulas basically invented by Congress. It was Congress which started Pakistan hate through Kashmir. It was, Congress which started Hindu-Muslim also at the start. It was again Congress which, used all these issues, violence and everything. Now what has happened? Now, because generationally everyone progresses, Rahul Gandhi actually introduced another upgrade, and that was for fixing the problem of casteism. So, Modi ji, what he has done is, he has appropriated that agenda. And now, because India's actual malady is going to be addressed if there is an attempt to do it. And then, look, today who was standing with Narendra Modi? Adani was standing there, right? Ambanis are there also, Mittals are with him as well. So, Narendra Modi couldn't care less that there is a hateful agenda in the country. Now, what he is going to invent might actually make his party really, really difficult to defeat at all in the future, right? So, because of that, Pakistan will gradually cease to be a problem. Pakistan-India relation will become, cease to be a problem, and they are going to, look, he has better things to do. One day he can get Nobel Prize, right? He can be called the Wish Guru. His country can progress really incredibly. So why would he listen to the losers who are actually dominating their channels, right? They are sunk boat. They are gone. You will find them vanishing before your eyes, right? So because of all that, I am hopeful. And by the way, I have learned two lessons in life. One, if somebody says that we are who we are, and no one is perfect, right? But when somebody says, give me a second chance, you give them that. And the second thing is, if you show faith in people, they will try everything to prove you right, right?
Okay.
So if there is this desire to move on from Gujarat image to Wish Guru image, why not?
Okay.
I mean, most welcome. We are going to help you in that, right?
Right.
And if, I'm expressing faith that this is going to be de-escalated. So I hope that that also happens.
Absolutely. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us. We'll be here for the next hour as well, but we'll take a short break for the headlines.